Welcome back. In this video we're gonna talk about the last things that I have learned about the Ricoh GR III since my last travel to the Swedish mountains. So let's begin and talk about the back screen. Now don't I haven't had any problems with the back screen so far that I have thought of. But during this trip, I really noticed that it was really hard to look at the back screen in really harsh daylight, because the back screen on the Ricoh GR3, it becomes really contrasty. It really feels sometimes that you're in a very like black and white hard contrast mode on the back screen. The only thing you see is really dark parts and really white parts when you try to compose your image. Now, this isn't a deal breaker for me, but if you're like considering buying this camera, this could be a thing to think about, because this camera doesn't have an EVF, so you only have the back screen to compose with. Now, the camera is really good at expose your images, so I often shoot in aperture priority mode or shutter priority mode. So the camera chooses the exposure itself, and it does that really well. So there isn't really a need to see your image on the back screen. Uh, you just need it for compose when you compose, and you can do that even if the back screen is really contrasty. I wish sometimes that the camera actually did have an EVF, but as I said, the back screen isn't a deal breaker, but it might be something to keep in mind if you are considering buying this camera, that the back screen can be a bit difficult to use or to look at in really harsh daylight. Now you have three different settings, so you can adjust the brightness of the back screen. You can adjust it up or down one stop. I don't know if I think that makes a huge difference, but that's also something to keep in mind, that that option exists. So that's that about the back screen. As I said, it's not a deal breaker, but it could be a bit better in my opinion. The next thing about the Ricoh GR3, it's not about the camera itself, it's about the raw files. Now, I think most of the Ricoh users are shooting JPEGs, and they are using one of the film emulations that exists on this camera, and they are great. I have a video, you can check it up here, where I do some tests where I go through the different simulations. But in my case, I often shoot in RAW, and I rarely use JPEGs. I don't know if that's just an old habit from shooting both Canon and Panasonic earlier. I just really like RAW files and play with them in an editing software. And the thing that I have noticed about the RAW files is that they are really good. You can really push both the shadows and the highlights. Now I often try to expose for the highlights, and I've noticed in the raw files for the Ricoh GR3 that you can really bring back those shadows, and I think that is just a great thing to have on your images if you like to edit the raw files and not shoot JPEGs and use those straight out of camera images. So that's another great thing about the Ricoh GR3, that is the raw files. So the third thing that I wanted to talk about is that the camera might be more resilient than you might think. Now when you hold the Ricoh GR3, you can really feel that it's well built, but it is a really small camera and it's not weather sealed. So you might think that if you would drop this, that it might not hold up as well as you think. But I did just that. I dropped this camera, and when I picked it up, I saw that like if we take off this ring, I saw that the lens had just popped off a little bit, and I can admit that my heart just dropped, and I thought, oh my god, I have just destroyed this camera. And I absolutely love this camera, so I didn't want it to be destroyed. But I tried to turn the camera on, and that didn't work, and I thought, oh, what should I do? But I just I just thought maybe I can just push it back in and see if that would work, because it had on one side completely gotten off from its ring. But I just pushed the camera lens back in and just hoped for the best. And I turned the camera on, and it worked just as it should. And I have been using it since that happened, and haven't had any issues since then. So it feels really sturdy, but you might not think that it is as resilient as it is. But after that incident, I'm not so afraid of like really abuse this camera, because I think I know that it will hold up really well. So that's another thing about this camera, that it might be more resilient than you might think. So that's three things about the Ricoh GR3 that I have learned since my last trip and my last usage of this great little camera that I think it is, and I absolutely enjoy using this camera every day to just shoot random photos with. So that's it for this video. I hope you have picked up some of these tips that I have shared with you. And I will just see you in the next video, maybe with more Ricoh GR3 content. Until then, take care, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.